Hi, I'm Talith. I'm a solo player making guides and speedruns for Dune Awakening. This video I'll be going over some tier lists I've made for the best augments, weapons, and armor in the game. Some weapons are highly rated for their use in PvP, and I wouldn't recommend taking them into PvE. I will link a spreadsheet below showing possible augment combinations you could use. Starting with S tier ranged weapons. At the top of S tier is the Perforator shotgun. This gun is incredible. It staggers, it has a huge burst and sustained damage. It synergizes well with the attractor field. It inflicts bleed, which will finish off downed enemies. The Shellburster is a comparable shotgun, but I prefer the burst on the Perforator. If you're going into the poison testing station, the Shellburster is probably better, because the Shellburster shots will clear poison clouds. The best augments for the shotgun are Heavy Caliber Upgrade, GRDA-44 Amplifier, and GRDA-44 Expander. The Regis Tripleshot Repeating Rifle. The damage on this thing is disgusting, and it can even outpace the Perforator when correctly augmented. The Jabal Spit Dart Expander really unlocks the gun's potential, and even with a lower grade expander you can double or triple your clip size. Keep in mind that the poison damage will break CC effects like Compel, and does not add any noticeable damage at higher difficulties. The best augments for the Regis Tripleshot Repeating Rifle are Jabal Spit Dart Expander, Heavy Caliber Upgrade, and Jabal Spit Dart Amplifier. For PvP and S, we have the Regis Disruptor Pistol. If you can get this at a high grade and slot in the two different Disruptor augs into it, you're going to be able to one-shot a player's shields every time. The best augments for shield breaking with a Regis Disruptor Pistol are Disruptive Coating, Rafik Snub-Nose Disruptive Coating, and Quick Release Trigger. A Dart for Every Man is an SMG used in PvP. This gun sprays bullets and is a great close-ranged shield cracker. You could probably take a Sardaukar Intimidator, the other SMG, and find just as much success, but a Dart for Every Man feels so good to use. The best augments for shield breaking with a Dart for Every Man are Disruptive M11 Sprayer, Disruptive Coating, and Disruptive M11 Quick Loader. Black Market K28 Lasgun. This gun was an amazing boss killer, but it doesn't compete with the other weapons post-nerf. For base raiding and Ornithopter surfing, there is no better weapon. When you max out the Lasgun, it becomes an absolute menace to vehicles. The best augments for the Black Market K28 Lasgun are Heavy Caliber Upgrade, Lasgun Amplifier, and Lasgun Harmonizer. The Ancient Way is still the best for taking down Ornithopters in the deep desert, but it's found a home in PvE as well. It's one of the best way to clear out groups of unshielded enemies, and is practically mandatory for the Radiation Testing Station boss. The best augments for the Ancient Way are Heavy Caliber Upgrade, Missile Launcher Fragmenter, and Missile Launcher Amplifier. Ambition is a drill shot that is only an S tier for its use in PvP. This thing has great accuracy and can be augmented to have a decent clip size, allowing you to pick at players from a distance, forcing them to spend all their stamina or die. The best augments for the Ambition are Heavy Caliber Upgrade, Drillshot FK7 Sprayer, and Drillshot FK7 Optimizer. For melee weapons in S, we have my personal favourite, the Static Needle. Rapier heavy attacks have great reach and can be chained together without missing. The parry is rewarding to master, but the rapier's damage is slightly less than the sword's. The Static Needle is preferred over the Halleck's pick because poison dots do minimal damage and cancel CC effects like Compel. Replica Pulse-sword has an AoE parry and replenishes your stamina, helping you to avoid being caught out with an empty bar. If you find the rapier parry too frustrating, the Replica Pulse-sword is for you. Replica Pulse-knife is the compromise between the rapier and the sword. It keeps some of the reach that the rapier has, but loses the sword's AoE parry. If you like to spam attacks, the unique effect which returns stamina on hit can be very helpful. The best augments for all melee weapons are Blade Sharpener, Heavy Blade Adjuster, and Edge Optimizer. Moving on to the A tier ranged weapons, we have the Seethe. This gun is for anyone who hates the shotgun meta and wants to return to clicking heads. The Seethe has a high headshot multiplier and really starts to put out damage after being augmented. There's a higher skill floor with the Seethe, so if you can't get consistent headshots, your damage output won't be very competitive. Still, this gun is a breath of fresh air in a meta where the best strategy has been to shoot at a sphere. The best augments for Seethe are Rafik Snub-Nose Heavy Kit, Heavy Caliber Upgrade, and Rafik Snub-Nose Expander. Experimental Lightning Gun is mandatory in ranged builds where you need to constantly be cracking shields. It feels better to use than the Regis Disruptor Pistol and can even be taken into PvP when correctly augmented. As a build enabler and a powerful shield breaker, it gets a spot in A. The best augments for shield breaking with an experimental lightning gun are Quick Release Trigger, Disruptive Coating, and Karpov 38 Dart Sprayer. Spike Hilt Sword is our first melee weapon in A tier. The bleed effect of this weapon isn't as helpful as a Replica Pulse-sword stamina regen, and in PvP, where bleed might be more useful, melee weapons are in a bad spot. Halleck's pick is still a good rapier, and in lower difficulty testing stations, the poison can find some value. However, as we talked about before, dots cancel CC effects, so I prefer to have the static needle. Cauterizer is a knife that applies burning, and the dots aren't scaling in PvE right now, so it isn't nearly as helpful as the Replica Pulse-knife stamina regen. The best augments for all melee weapons are Blade Sharpener, Heavy Blade Adjuster, and Edge Optimizer. Onto B tier ranged weapons, we have the Plasma Cannon. You can augment this gun to fire endlessly, making its sustained damage very high. For group fights and PvP, this gun is relentless, but if you can get someone to take the heat off you in PvE, the Plasma Cannon can do great work there as well. The best augments for Plasma Cannon are Vulcan GAU-92 Expander, Vulcan GAU-92 Disruptive Coating, and Heavy Caliber Upgrade. Sardaukar Intimidator is still a good SMG, but for PvP we have a dart for every man, and I'm just not a fan of how close you have to be to get value out of this gun in PvE. If I'm cracking shields, I prefer the experimental lightning gun, and if I'm doing close range damage, I'd prefer a shotgun. The best augments for shield breaking with the Sardaukar Intimidator are Disruptor M11 Sprayer, Disruptive Coating, and Disruptor M11 Quickloader. Dunewatcher can actually deal a surprising amount of damage if properly augmented for a headshot build. Having to scope in hampers your situational awareness, and it loses a lot of accuracy when your clip size and rate of fire go up. For these reasons, the Dunewatcher can't quite compete with the Seethe, so it gets a spot in B tier. The best augments for the Dunewatcher are Jabal Spit Dart Expander, Heavy Caliber Upgrade, and Jabal Spit Dart Amplifier. For B tier melee weapons, we have the Burning Blades. The Burning Blades are a favourite of many players, and they're lots of fun to use. Unfortunately, they have a few problems which hold them back. Their range is too short, and the unique effect they have deals very little damage. The unique slow blade attack they do looks very cool, but it's less practical compared to other weapons. Feyd's Drinker is just a knife with a useless effect. The best augments for all melee weapons are Blade Sharpener, Heavy Blade Adjuster, and Edge Optimizer. Moving on to C tier ranged weapons. The Penetrator is a Drillshot, and Drillshots in this game just don't do enough damage. It has a bleed effect, so you might find use for it when corpse farming low level enemies, but give it a miss otherwise. The best augments for the Penetrator are the Drillshot FK7 Sprayer, Heavy Caliber Upgrade, and Drillshot FK7 Optimizer. Plastanium Pyrocket has too small an area effect and too low damage to compete with alternatives like the Ancient Way. The burning damage doesn't scale, so all we have is a weapon that is thematically cool but functionally useless. The best augments for the Plastanium Pyrocket are Heavy Caliber Upgrade, Pyrocket Supercharger, and Pyrocket Quickloader. Way of the Misr has okay damage, but that's about it. Anything it can do can be done better by another weapon. Shishakli's Bite fires and bursts, but still manages to have terrible ammo efficiency. It feels clunky to use and is in a similar spot to the Way of Misr. There isn't really a place for it in the game right now. The best augments for the Way of the Misr and Shishakli's Bite are Heavy Caliber Upgrade, Mauler Pistol Expander, and Mauler Pistol Disruptive Coating. Regis Burst Drillshot is a drillshot without bleed that has terrible damage and drops your shield while charging. It's just awful. The best augments for the Regis Burst Drillshot are Heavy Caliber Upgrade, Drillshot FK7 Sprayer, and Drillshot FK7 Optimizer. Salusan Vengeance would be such a fun weapon if it did more damage and the explosive AoE darts didn't hurt you as well. As it stands, this weapon is just disappointing. The best augments for the Salusan Vengeance are Heavy Caliber Upgrade, Karpov 38 Heavy Kit, and Karpov 38 Precision Kit. Indara's Lullaby is a burst fire rifle that feels pretty good to use, but the damage again just isn't there. The best augments for Indara's Lullaby are Heavy Caliber Upgrade, Karpov 38 Heavy Kit, and Quick Release Trigger. Bashar's command has all of the downside of heavy weapons in this game, but without any benefits. Heavy weapons should feel powerful, but this gun does not. The best augments for Bashar's command are Heavy Caliber Upgrade, Vulcan GAU-92 Disruptive Coating, and Vulcan GAU-92 Expander. Vaporizer and Glasser are the two flamethrowers that sit comfortably in last place. They have bad damage, a burn that doesn't scale, they're slow, short-ranged, and make you vulnerable to shoot. In a word, they're garbage. Flamethrowers are pretty fun to shoot though, so I'll give them that. The best augments for the Vaporizer and Glasser are Flamethrower Amplifier, Heavy Caliber Upgrade, and Quick Release Trigger. If your favourite weapon wasn't in the top tier, that doesn't mean it's bad. You should always use the weapon you have the most fun with. If you disagree with my rankings, you can tell me why I'm wrong in the comments below. Next we have the armor tier list. At the top of S tier we have the circuit gauntlets. These give your power pack 10% more efficiency. This works for everything: your shield, tools, energy weapons, and suspensor belt. Anything that uses power will get this benefit. This is an incredible bonus and makes the circuit gauntlets the most sought after armor piece. Power harness increases your maximum power by 50, which makes this armor a great all-rounder. It provides competitive mitigation stats and keeps the high armor of other heavy chest pieces. The Forge set has become a community favorite with the release of Chapter 3, and is the best way to get fire and poison mitigation. It has good blade mitigation, but lacks the resistance to darts that some other armors have. The Forge set claims S rank over the other armor sets because of its versatility. You can take it into any testing station and still be comfortable. A heavy set would make you weak to blade damage, and the Pincushion set doesn't have any fire resistance. Tabr's Softstep boots still earn a place in S because their unique effect, which reduces worm threat, is helpful at almost all stages of the game. You might not need these to be graded, but any extra time on the sand makes these worth a craft. Moving on to A tier armor, we have the Pincushion set. Pincushion is a light armor with dart and blade mitigation, so for content outside of testing stations it's a great all-round choice. Forge is a set you could recommend to anyone, but Pincushion beats it in situations where you don't need fire or poison resist. Bulwark Set is an A tier because as you reach higher difficulty testing stations, you need every advantage you can get in order to survive. If you're not getting hit by blade attacks, the Bulwark's high armor and dart mitigation gives you the survivability you need. It can enable range builds, giving you the extra tankiness you need, and it allows you to take more hits from the electric testing station boss when augmented correctly. X-Core leggings have a bonus to dash stamina cost reduction that sets them apart from other leggings. You could use them as a great all-rounder, but there's situations where dart mitigation is preferred. B tier is where we find Idaho's Charge, a chest piece that can be really helpful in certain situations. It reduces dispenser cost by 20%, allowing you to stay in the air for longer, making full use of death from above. If you're not floating about, there are better alternatives. Executor Set trades some dart mitigation to get more concussive mitigation, but concussive damage from grenades and rockets is fairly uncommon. You might think that something like the poison boss's knee charge does concussive damage, but it's actually counted as blade damage. A Bulwark Set would probably serve you better in most situations. In C tier, we have all the still suits that might have been nice to have while leveling, but now serve no purpose. Joining the still suits are some unique armors which lose defense in exchange for some unremarkable effects, like scanner range, dew gathering, and climbing stamina cost reduction. For augments on armor, it will depend on the armor's strength. If your armor has blade mitigation, the blade mitigation augments will serve you best. If you are running something like Bulwark, you should lean into its strength and use dart mitigation augments. Garment reinforcement is a good all-rounder for armor, but it's best slotted into high armor pieces like the Bulwark chest piece. If you disagree with any of my armor placements, you can share your opinion in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, you can like it and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to see a full write-up of my thoughts on every weapon, armor, and augment in the game, you can find them on the Method website. The links will be in the description. I have written several articles for Method, but this YouTube channel remains independent. In the description you can also find the spreadsheet I used to work out the best augments for each weapon. It has a section for each gun where you can try out combinations for yourself. The spreadsheet is still a work in progress and I will update it in the future. Thank you for watching my videos, and a big thank you to all of the people that I've talked to in the community. The Dune community has some of the most helpful, kind, and thoughtful people that I've met while gaming.